Monster Synthesis Master. Chapter 171 The Great Thief, Treasure-Seeking Mouse. The treasure-hunting mouse controlled the group of mice to break through, moving all the soil along the way to the back like playing Pac-Man. The tens of thousands of rats worked together to dig the hole at an unbelievable speed. Soon, the rat army broke through the obstacles and dug up the floor tiles of the underground vault. As the floor tiles were pushed up, the black rats were like sewage that had burst open the sewer, flooding the underground vault in an instant. Due to Old Crane's suspicious nature, he was afraid that the guards would take advantage of the situation to embezzle the money, so he had adopted automatic equipment when designing the underground vault. The underground vault was impregnable. There were a total of 3 layers of iron gates separating it, and it was airtight. The guards of White Crane Hall patrolled outside the 3 iron gates. Only the explosion of the vault would have a sound and impact. No matter what happened, the guards would not be able to hear or see. The rats soon covered the entire ground of the underground vault, and more rats were still in the hole. If they were to throw a densely packed patient into the underground vault now, they would probably die on the spot. The chattering rats suddenly became quiet. They lowered their heads and welcomed the arrival of their true king. The treasure-hunting mouse stepped on the bodies of other mice and crawled out of the hole. He straightened his body and looked around, only to see the magnificent sight of the underground vault. The stacks of cash were arranged in a row, and their size was the same as the hellhound's kennel. After that, the treasure-hunting mouse felt an overwhelming aura of treasure. Walking around the cache, the treasure-hunting mouse suddenly opened its mouth and was covered in golden light. Her small eyes were staring at the gold bars that were stacked like a pyramid. The treasure-hunting mouse looked at the gold mountain in front of it and drooled. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Move, move. The treasure-hunting mouse waved its hand and ordered the rats to take away all the paper money and gold. At the treasure-hunting mouse's command, all the mice moved and bit off the shaping strips of the entire bundle of notes. Then, they picked up a stack of notes and ran out. In the blink of an eye, all the notes in the underground vault had been swept away. Then, the rats jumped on the gold bars like crazy and knocked down the pyramid. Then, they left in groups of 2 or 3 with the gold bars. The treasure-hunting mouse continued to wander around the vault and stopped in front of 2 rows of bookshelves that were 2 meters tall. The bookshelves were lined with yellow leather bags, and they were very close to each other. The treasure-hunting mouse's eyes twitched as it recalled what the macaw had said at the door. It seemed to be saying, "Take away everything related washi." Gold wasn't supposed to be moved, but treasure-hunting mouse knew that it was a treasure, so it moved it all back. As for the paper bags in front of him, they looked and smelled a little strange. Treasure-seeking mouse hesitated for a while and stomped its foot. He would rather take the wrong one than miss it, and take them all away. Countless rats climbed up the bookshelves, bit the corner of the craft paper bag, and pulled it out of the bookshelf by force. The underground vault had fallen into a rat's revelry, but at this moment, outside the 350-centimeter thick iron gates, the guards of White Crane Hall did not notice anything, and kept yawning one after another. At this moment, the walkie-talkie on the table made some noise, and someone asked, "Is the underground vault safe? Are there any flies?" When the 3 on duty heard Second Guardian Sun Chu's voice, they immediately stood up from their sprawled posture and picked up the walkie-talkie to reply, "Second Guardian, everything is normal on our side. We didn't see any flies." "All right then. Close the door tightly and don't come out no matter what you hear." The 4 of them looked at each other, not knowing what was going on outside. They also didn't understand why Second Guardian, who had always been good at strategizing, suddenly spoke in such a hurried tone. The underground vault was 10 meters below the ground, and the small explosion of the self-destructing fly could not reach such a deep place. What the 4 of them didn't know was that while they were guessing what was happening outside, the inside of the vault behind the 3 iron doors had already been turned into a mess by the rats. After the mouse had moved all the paper items, the treasure-hunting mouse went around the underground vault again. After making sure that there was nothing left, it went into the hole and left. Squeak! After they left, Treasure Hunting Mouse gave another order to the rats to fill up the hole they had dug so that no traces would be left. Just as the Treasure Hunting Mouse was secretly emptying the underground vault of White Crane Hall, Link's final battle was also taking place in the Colosseum on the other side. The wild beasts fought to the death. Link's hellhound Wang Chai and the thief's wolf dog. This was the mission that Link had arranged for the bandits. After midnight, they would pretend to be passers-by and fight to the death with him. Link gave the bandit leader the startup capital and even gave him a mission guide, telling him to buy a wolf dog from the underground black market and change his outfit. That was how the bandit leader came to be in his tropical holiday outfit. I'm telling you, you can't beat me today. My black back is obedient and sensible, and it's extremely brutal in the death arena. Your hunting dog is no match for it. The bandit Liang people's words carried a hint of arrogance, their emotions were quite abundant. And to the thief Liang person, casually putting on a cool front and saying a few fake words was simply child's play to him. The members of the Link gang had been trained before they came. When they saw the pretentious bandit, they all pretended not to see him and closed their eyes to bet on their boss's victory. Because of Link's one-night winning streak, he had earned the title of God of War in just a few hours. This was to show his sharp judgment. Now that they saw Link's final battle, everyone ran over to bet on Link's victory. Only a few people bet on the bandits. As a result, the final odds were only a pitiful 1.08. He basically couldn't make much money and could only participate in the first game. As soon as the death match began, the hellhound Wang Chai used soul judgment to instantly kill Blackback. Even the crowd didn't see what happened clearly. The black-backed man fell to the ground stiffly and stopped breathing. At this moment, after the bandit put on a show of disbelief, and shock, he naturally proposed the Moon Shadow Council arbitration. When the judges and staff members heard about the arbitration of the Moon Shadow Council, they all rushed over. Again. The judge who had accompanied Link to the Moon Shadow Council's arbitration last week could not help but sigh and shake his head when he saw Link and his subordinate, Wang Chai. It seemed that this week, another stupid guy would have to pay 300,000 for his ignorance. Link took the wooden box from Ah Fu and followed the judge into the corridor with a calm expression. This was the last part of Link's plan. This time, he had come to the Moon Shadow Council. They were here to plant eyes. Chapter 172 Brave Young Man, Go and Create a Miracle. The judge led Link and the thief into the corridor. Before this, Deist Liengren had been curious about this so-called Moon Shadow Council arbitration. He had always felt that it was so mysterious, as if there was some big secret. Especially the Qin brothers who had followed their boss. After they walked out of the Colosseum, they were captured by a group of mysterious people in black moon robes before they could make a move. The bandits suspected that the group of mysterious people in black moon robes were very likely to be the people of the legendary Moon Shadow Council. This time, after putting on a show with Boss, he finally had the chance to come in and verify it. Link walked alongside the judge with the hellhound Wang Chai. The bandit pushed the dead body of the black-backed wolfhound behind him. He was immediately attracted by the murals on the wall that looked like the creation of the century. He watched as he walked. In the situation where no one was reading it, the bandits only had a partial understanding of it, so they could barely make out that it was about the history of the Moon Shadow Council. In particular, the black moon robe with the new moon on it further confirmed his previous guess. At the end of the corridor, as the judge pushed open the wooden door, a natural and quiet scene came into view. The bandit Liang looked at the canopy of the sky that covered the land and the trunk of the giant tree that was 100 meters tall. He was completely dumbfounded, his entire person frozen on the spot, shocked to the point that he could not move. "Sir, please keep up. We have to hurry to the arbitration." The judge turned around and said to the thief Liang Ren. He was already used to such a scene. Anyone who came to the Moon Shadow Council for the first time would be awed by the magnificent view before them. The bandit leader regained his composure and continued to follow the judge and the boss. Here, many people wearing black moon robes could be seen. The bandit leaders immediately cast a detection spell on them, and only then did they realize. So the Moon Shadow Council is a druid organization. No wonder the arbitration was handed over to them. The druids of the Moon Shadow Council were cultivating and walking by themselves, so they were not surprised to see an outsider presiding over them. But because of this glance, the calm faces of the druids who were cultivating suddenly froze, and some even stopped to look. When the elder had used the heart of the divine tree to announce the eighth elder's identity and appearance, only a few druids had seen Link. However, the story of the eighth elder had been widely spread in Noah and had even become the object of worship of many druids. In the Forest of Inheritance, the eighth elder only used half an hour to understand the essence of the moon. Not only did he break the third elder's 1-month record, but he also pushed the record to an unprecedented level that no one could ever break. Many new apprentices who hadn't comprehended the moon's essence even drew Link's figure from their memories and worshipped him in their rooms. They prayed devoutly every day, hoping to comprehend the moon's essence as soon as possible and gain nature's acknowledgement. Thus, even though they had never seen Link in person, everyone in Noah knew about him. The young man in front of them looked exactly the same as the image in their minds and the guest elder in the painting. More and more Moon Shadow Council druids stopped in their tracks. Their glowing eyes were in high spirits, and the expressions on their faces were no longer calm. Some of the druids even fainted from excitement. Some of the druids even mustered their courage and walked towards Link, as if to greet him. The entire venue was filled with idols and fans. Link furrowed his brows, and his hands drooped naturally at his sides. He waved discreetly, signaling the druids not to come over. When the Moon Shadow Council druids saw the gesture, they all understood the guest elder's intention. It was obvious that he did not want to be disturbed. Her body stiffened for a moment, but she quickly composed herself and went about her own business, not bothering Link. The bandit leader sharply caught this point and frowned slightly. His eyes could not help but pay more attention to the druids of the Moon Shadow Council. He subconsciously felt that his boss and the Moon Shadow Council must have some secrets that no one knew. Link and the judge walked under the divine tree Noah and took the elevator to the hall where the judges were. The thief Liang was like a country bumpkin who had just entered the city, finding everything strange and interesting. After arriving at the main hall, the three elders walked out from the secret room behind them. The moment he saw Link, both his body and expression froze. "Elder Lin, why have you come?" The fifth elder was flabbergasted. He didn't expect Link to suddenly visit. Looking at the hellhound that Link was leading and the cold wolf dog that was being pushed by the other person, he immediately understood the reason. "Judge, you can leave now. We'll handle the rest." The judge in charge realized that things were not as simple as he had thought after hearing the elder of the Moon Shadow Council call him Elder Lin. Now that the council elder had asked him to leave, the judge heaved a sigh of relief. From what he'd just said, he already knew that Link was one of the elders of the Moon Shadow Council. He also instantly understood why Link could always win. After all, as an elder druid, observing wild animals was the most basic of basics. This was the family matter of the Moon Shadow Council, and there was no need for him to get involved. Besides, the Moon Shadow Council had always given the other party an explanation. "I'll wait for you two at the door." The judge turned around and left. Link heaved a sigh of relief as he watched the judge leave in the lift. He then said to the bandit beside him, "All right, you don't have to act anymore." After saying that, he casually walked up the stage, pulled out a futon, and sat down. The three elders were dumbfounded and only reacted after a moment. "So, this arbitration is also fake?" Link nodded. "Yes, this is a member of my Link gang. We put on a show together. Otherwise, how could we have entered?" Link glanced at the three elders' disappointed expressions and pointed at them. "What's going on? Why do you all look so disappointed after knowing the truth? Do you feel like you've lost 300,000 yuan in appraisal fees?" The fifth elder's expression was stiff. He walked to Link's side and said in a negotiating tone, "Elder Lin, can we discuss something? If you want to come next time, just contact me directly and come through the secret passage. Don't mess with the Moon Shadow Council arbitration anymore." When they heard that there would be an arbitration, the three of them cleaned up a little and even woke up from their meditation. They had paid too much in order to earn this 300,000. In the end, it was Link who came, and now he had no money. He felt as if the 300,000 he was about to ask for had flown away. If Link were to do this every time he came, these long-lived druid elders might not be able to take it. "You're making me so sad, Ying Luo." Lin Ke shook his head. He then opened his bag and placed Xiao Xiao Sha in his palm. "I was thinking that my 2 eagles had given birth to a nest of cubs, and I'd brought one over for you on account that I'm an elder of the Moon Shadow Council. I didn't expect you to measure the heart of a gentleman with the heart of a villain." Sigh, sigh, sigh. After 2 days of growth, Xiao Xiaosha had grown wings and looked rather decent. The 3 elders saw a small condor and all came over to look at it curiously. "I wonder what's so special about this little condor. Xiao Xiaosha, let them witness your strength." Link raised his hand and Xiao Xiao Sha stepped on his palm and rose into the air. Then, a gust of wind and sand suddenly condensed, completely wrapping the 3 elders in the sandstorm. Chapter 173. Perhaps this is called stabbing an eye in the face. This Bayan. Not only the 3 elders in the center of the sandstorm, but even Liang Ren, who had lost his use as a tool, was also dumbfounded. He did not expect Xiao Xiao Sha, who was nothing special in Link's gang, to have such a skill. In terms of shock, the bandit leader was no less shocked than the elders of the Moon Shadow Council. After all, the bandit leaders and wind-chasing wolf had been feeding Link's pets these days. In his eyes, the pets that Link had helped were all normal animals, except for the macaw that could speak. However, after seeing Xiao Xiao Sha's sandstorm engulfing today, the bandit leader's mind went blank. Such a small body could actually create a strong sandstorm out of thin air. Whether it was to escape or to launch an attack, it was a sharp weapon. If Xiao Xiaosha has special abilities, then the Sand Eagle and the White Blade Sea Eagle, as his parents, must have extraordinary abilities as well, he said. The bandit Liang's brows furrowed as he searched through the memories in his mind. In his memory, the Sand Eagle and the White Saber Sea Eagle were either breeding or on the way to breeding. It did not look like an animal with special abilities at all. The 15-second sandstorm quickly subsided, but the 3 elders in the middle of the sandstorm were already covered in dust. This swan knee's ability, does it belong to this little condor? The 5th elder couldn't help but ask. He didn't care about the sand in his mouth. The other 2 elders dusted off their bodies and focused on the sand in Link's hand. "Yes, this eagle is called Xiao Xiao Sha. Its ability is to create a sandstorm that can last for more than 10 seconds. Its ability will grow as it grows. When it fully matures, it can create a sandstorm that is more than 100 meters long." Link was also completely bragging without a draft. In any case, he could only brag now. If Xiao Xiaosha could not do it in the future, it would mean that it was not acclimatized to the divine tree Noya and could not grow in strength. Look, Link had even thought of an excuse. "Elder Lin, are you here to gift Xiao Xiaosha to us?" The 3rd and 4th elders couldn't help but ask. Link nodded. "As the 8th elder of the Moon Shadow Council, I receive my salary and benefits every month. I also do a little bit of work for the council. There's no need to be so surprised, right? If you don't trust me, I won't object to you buying it." The 5th elder was the first to react. She grinned and moved to Link's side. "How could that be? I just didn't expect Elder Lin to visit us so suddenly to give us a divine beast." It was not an exaggeration to call Xiao Xiaosha a divine beast. There were all sorts of strange creatures in nature, especially after the Day of Reckoning. The natural environment and animals in the wild were affected by nuclear radiation, and the number of mutations had increased significantly. However, most of the wild beasts became violent or physically stronger after being exposed to the radiation. The three elders had never seen anything like the little condor's ability to create sandstorms out of thin air. It was not an exaggeration to call him a divine beast. Link patted Xiao Xiaosha's head and said gently, "You just stay here. I'll come to see you often. If they don't treat you well, just tell me." With that, he held Xiao Xiaosha and faced the fifth elder. The fifth elder was flattered. He quickly reached out his hands and carefully took Xiao Xiaosha. The other two elders also had a nervous expression, afraid that they would knock this little divine beast. "Elder Lin, you're really going to give us this divine beast just like that?" The three elders felt as if they were in a dream. Disbelief was written all over their faces. Link was speechless. The elders of the Moon Shadow Council had been with Moros for a long time, and they had become unscrupulous. "Why don't you believe in my sincere heart? If you guys don't feel at ease holding it, you can transfer 1,000,000 or so to my card. I don't mind." Seeing that the three of them were still expressionless, Link waved his hand helplessly and said, all right. We gave birth to 3 in a nest. I'll give you 1 and keep 2 for myself. That should be fine, right?" Hearing that, the 3 elders of the Moon Shadow Council heaved a long sigh of relief. The Moon Shadow Council had taken Link in as a guest elder for their own selfish reasons. They wanted to use Link as a secret weapon against Nature's alliance. However, under such circumstances, after Link comprehended the essence of the moon in half an hour, the elders had a meeting together. They expressed that they wanted to change their attitude towards Link and treat him as the most talented elder in the history of the Moon Shadow Council. However, this was only a change in attitude among the elders and was not made public. However, Link had brought a divine beast to them first and said that he would give it to them. This was unbelievable. At the same time, he felt a lot of guilt. "You guys take care of it. With the divine tree Noah's protection, I believe it will live well in the future." The fifth elder held Xiao Xiaosha in his arms and his expression turned serious. "Elder Lin, don't worry. We will definitely take good care of Xiao Xiaosha. We will definitely treat him with the highest standards." Lin Ke looked at his watch. It was already 12:30. If there were no accidents, the operation of the treasure hunting mouse and the macaw should have ended. "All right, I've delivered the things. If there's nothing else, I'll go back first." Link stood up and waved his hand. "You guys can decide on the appraisal fee. I, Link, am helping a small sect. I can't afford to pay 300,000. The fourth elder, who rarely spoke, glared at Link. "Elder Lin, what are you saying? You're also an elder of the Moon Shadow Council, so you're being too polite. You don't know this, but ever since you broke the third elder's record in half an hour, you've become an influential figure in the Moon Shadow Council, and the idol of all druids." Even the third elder coughed helplessly. Compared to Link's achievements, his reputation as a genius of the Moon Shadow Council had become a humiliation. "Right, next time we'll just come in through the main entrance. If it's not convenient, you can give fifth brother a call, he will arrange for someone to pick you up," the third elder said. "All right, I'll be leaving then. I'll have to trouble you to make the follow-up arrangements for the Colosseum." Link waved his hand and stood up to call the bandit leaders to leave with him. At this moment, Dao Liang Ren's mind was in a daze. He had thought that Link's connection to the military and the number 1 assassin, the painter, was already his trump card. However, they had never expected Link to be the 8th elder of the Moon Shadow Council. The Moon Shadow Council was obviously a druid sect. This also explained Link's ability to control animals. The bandit leader couldn't interject earlier, so he detected the 3 council elders out of boredom. They were all level 35 plus, elite. Their boss was only an ordinary NPC who was over level 10, but he could actually compete with the 3 elders. Out of curiosity, the bandit leader cast a detection spell on Link again. 174 Chapter 174 The Heavens Have Changed. Hiss. Dao Yang Ren couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air, his heart was wildly shocked, so fast. Name, Link. Race, human. Level, LV16. Occupation, sage. Status, leader of the Link Gang, guest elder of the Moon Shadow Council. HP, 410/410. Energy, 100/100. Attributes, Strength 25, Agility 31, Endurance 31, others unknown. Skills, Hidden Weapon Level 1, Protective Upstanding Chi Level 10, Charging Fist Level 1, Haste Level 10, others unknown. Specialties, Basic Shooting LVL 3, Basic Combat LVL 2, True Essence of the Moon, Strong Vitality, Agile Body, others unknown. Evaluation, very few people can achieve such extraordinary achievements at this age. A week ago, Link had only been level 15 when the bandit checked on him in the animal arena. In just a week, Link had reached level 16. The speed of his upgrade was terrifyingly fast. The bandit leader was level 4 before he joined the Link Gang, but now he was level 6 and had accumulated 2,000 experience points. Now, he needed 3,600 experience points to level up from level 6 to level 7. The amount of experience needed to level up from level 15 to level 16 was even more massive. Of course, this was not the most surprising thing to the bandit leaders. It was the fact that NPCs could grow and level up, followed by the speed of leveling up. The detection this time showed more information than before, especially the updated evaluation, which pushed Link to a new height. The two of them walked out of the elevator and the bandit Liang man couldn't help but ask, "Boss, Xiao Xiaosha is so powerful. Why did you send him here? He's so small. Why, are you reluctant to part?" asked Link. The bandit Liang scratched his head. "Maybe it's because I've been taking care of it for a few days. I feel that it's still so small. I'm a little worried about it when it's suddenly placed in this strange environment." "It's already very good," said Link, smiling. "If they were in the wild, their parents would break their wings and throw them down the cliff." Link looked up. "Look at this place. It's protected by the divine tree, chirping birds, and fragrant flowers. There are no natural enemies, and there are so many female owls. Life is so enjoyable that you can't even think about home, okay?" The bandit leader also looked up at the environment under the protection of the Noah divine tree's huge crown. Now that he said it, it seemed to be true. With a wide enough environment to soar, he did not have to worry about food and drink, and he did not have to worry about finding a partner. Just as he was seriously thinking, he noticed that Boss was staring at him with an indescribable look. "Boss, Ying Luo, why are you looking at me like that?" The bandit Liang person stammered as he spoke. "I don't want anyone to know that I'm an elder of the Moon Shadow Council for the time being. You know what to do, right?" he asked. Dao Yang Ren immediately reacted and repeatedly nodded, "Don't worry, boss. I'll definitely keep this matter to myself." Link nodded in satisfaction. He then led the hellhound Wangchai in front. Dao Yang Ren followed closely behind. Knowing that the mysterious eighth elder had suddenly appeared, the druids on the side of the divine tree Noya all put down their work and swarmed under the divine tree, waiting for the eighth elder to appear. There were even female druids who used branches and flowers to make a circle. They held wooden boards with the words "Worship to the eighth elder" written on them. "Guest Elder Lin is so handsome and charming. He's the only one in the world who has comprehended the truth in 2 minutes. Elder Lin, I'm your little junior nephew. Elder Lin, please be my good elder." Link had just come down from the elevator. There were already many druids gathered under the Tree of God. Many of their eyes were still dark, clearly not yet blessed by nature. There were also many apprentice druids whose eyes were green. There's the taste of a meal. However, just as the fanatical fans were about to rush forward, they were stopped by Lin Kei's sharp gaze. They all stood in place and did not dare to come over. Link only let out a sigh of relief after they walked out of the encirclement. Were all druids this crazy now? The bandit leaders who were following behind were also stunned. They didn't expect their boss to have such influence in the Moon Shadow Council. Seeing that his boss usually read the newspapers for Link and even did some things himself, the bandit leader couldn't help but think, boss is still too low profile. The two of them arrived at the entrance of the long corridor, where the judge had been waiting for a long time. Greetings, Elder Linear. As Link approached, the judges bowed and greeted him. Now that they knew that Link was an elder of the Moon Shadow Council, it would be wrong if they didn't take the initiative to greet him. When we arrive at the Colosseum, you can announce the results of the arbitration as per normal and maintain the original judgment. As for the cost, someone from the Moon Shadow Council will explain it to you later. The judge was like Link's submissive underling. He nodded and said, I know. As he walked out of the Moon Shadow Council, Link's gang, who had been waiting anxiously outside, all gathered around him. The bandit Liang man put on his sunglasses again and put on a long face. I declare that the Moon Shadow Council's arbitration confirms the original judgment. After the referee's announcement, he walked off the stage. The bandit leader at the side snorted coldly. He carried the black-backed wolfhound's corpse and turned to leave. All right, it's getting late. We should leave. At Link's command, he helped the crowd shout the victory slogan and left the Colosseum with their leader Link. In the VIP room of the Colosseum. Boss, Link has left. Should we go back? His secretary, Kohler, asked. Hee, the good show has just begun. Morose put down his glass and put out his cigar. He smiled and said, let's go, we'll head back to the residence. Although Morose had no idea what Link was up to, he was sure that Link was up to no good. What he needed to do now was to return to his comfortable home and wait for his subordinates to collect the information. He wanted to watch Link's show before he went to bed. Link helped everyone drive the carriages out of the Colosseum. Lin Kai sat in the back of the car and only said one word: hurry. The 5 cars formed a long line and quickly returned to the Link gang along Riverside Avenue. The skeleton wolf lay motionless in the yard, the sand eagle and the white-blade sea eagle were still in the cardboard box nest, and the macaw was lying on the rattan swing chair in the yard, creaking and looking leisurely. We've been working so hard at night, but you've been having fun outside until midnight, and now you know to come back? Don't you know what time it is? Did you get the things in the warehouse? Asked Link, walking up to him. The macaw grabbed a message tube with its claws and raised its sexy parrot legs. Here, it's here. A messenger tube? Link looked at the black tube and shook it slightly. He could hear that there was indeed something inside. He put the letter in his pocket and was about to walk in when a figure suddenly climbed onto Link's body like lightning. It burrowed into his pocket and revealed a furry little head. Link patted the treasure-hunting mouse's little head with his index finger. The treasure-hunting mouse looked like it was enjoying it. Little treasure, how was your mission today? The macaw laid on the rattan chair and didn't seem like it was going to get down. It stretched out its wings and said, go in and take a look for yourself. Don't be too surprised. Link walked into the house full of anticipation. The first thing he saw was the notes on the ground, which made his eyes light up. Then, the gold bars that were piled up like a small mountain emitted an orange-golden light that almost blinded the eyes under the light. What's this? Other than the notes and gold bars, there was also a huge stack of paper bags. She randomly opened one and took out the documents inside. Hiss! Link couldn't help but gasp. Didn't they say that they were only after money? Now that they had gotten these things, they were directly going to die. Chapter 175 Your home is gone. Link then opened another craft paper envelope and scanned the documents inside. There was no mistake. These were all the land deeds and house deeds of White Crane Hall's various industries, as well as records and evidence of their secret collusion with other sects. Link opened a few more folders. The more he read, the more shocked he became. I didn't know that the White Crane Hall had secretly colluded with the other gangs. They sold information about the water transportation gang and exchanged information with them. They even sold the gang's territory under the excuse of conflicts between gangs. After reading it, Link was dumbfounded. This White Crane Hall really knows how to play, they actually thought of such a way to trade assets, haha. Link was shocked, as if he had thought of something important. Quick, everyone, come over and organize the information. Do as I say. The thugs rushed into the house and were all stunned to see the cash and gold on the floor. In the slums of Shandu. White Crane Hall. Everyone moved the signal jammer according to Sun Chu's suggestion, but it had no effect on the swarm of flies. Old Crane had wanted to kill all the self-destructing flies with his own bravery, but not only did they fail to disperse after a while, the explosions they triggered injured his adopted sons and his men. In the end, the adopted sons picked up Old Crane and fled to the secret chamber. The explosions of the self-destructing flies continued for half an hour. In the end, the self-destructing flies had no more explosions and simply flew to the various rooms in White Crane Hall to find the electrical outlets on the walls. After that, he crawled into the socket and rushed up to touch the wire. It's been 10 minutes since the last explosion. Father, let's go out and take a look. The sage-like Old Crane was now covered in dust. His neatly combed hair was in a mess, and some parts of it even had signs of being burnt by explosions. All right, you guys go out and take a look at the situation. Old Crane held his dragon-headed walking stick with both hands and pretended to be calm. A few uninjured foster sons walked to the secret door and observed the situation outside through the peephole. After making sure that there was no danger, they slowly opened the secret door a crack and the three of them quickly slipped out. Old Crane glanced at Sun Chu, who was sitting next to him. The adopted son he was most proud of was frowning and wearing a conflicted expression. Sun Chu, what do you think of the attack this time? Sun Chu shook his head. He had no thoughts at all. Previously, he was sure that these flies were small explosive robots. However, after he brought the signal jammer, not only were the self-explosive flies not affected, they flew even more violently. Now that his foster father had asked for his opinion on the attack, several faces flashed through Sun Chu's mind, but he had no evidence. This must have been planned for a long time, but I don't have a clue as to who did it, and what's the purpose. Just to see us in a sorry state. Old Crane straightened his back and looked at the secret door. The Hidden Alliance is backed by the Blood Clan, and they've just recently traded territory with us. They shouldn't be the ones who came up with the exploding flies. The Freemasonry and Dasaka might have mastered the ability to control insects, and they have a reason to act, so the possibility is very high. Father, you seem to have forgotten something. Link also has a reason to help. He also has many pets. It can't be Link, Old Crane sneered. If he did this, what good would it do him other than venting his anger? From the moment he obediently paid the 300,000, I knew that he wanted to make a name for himself within the rules. If he is caught for going against his superior this time, it will completely cut off his road to development in the slums. Sun Chu's eyes lit up when he heard his foster father's words. What if it's for the money? The White Crane Hall comes to collect rent every month as usual, but 2 days ago, Link sent money to their door. This is unreasonable in itself. Old Crane's eyes lit up. He rose to his feet and said in unison with Sun Chu, the underground vault. The group of people rushed from the secret cabinet to the underground vault. The 4 guards opened the vault door and saw Old Crane and the other tycoons with grim looks on their faces. They couldn't help but feel a little scared. Is there anything strange about the underground vault? Old Crane asked urgently. The underground vault was his life. All the cash and gold that he received every month, and most importantly, all the land deeds and transaction records of White Crane Hall, were all stored in the vault that was 10 meters underground. The guard scratched his head and carefully recalled, other than the walkie-talkie telling us to close the door and not go out, it's the same as usual, nothing unusual. There are 3 iron gates in the underground vault. Even if there's any sound, it will definitely not come out. Sun Shu pushed the guard away and inserted his key into the lock. Old Crane also took out 2 keys and inserted them into the 2 lock holes. Only Old Crane and Sun Shu had the key to the underground vault, which showed how much Old Crane favored Sun Shu. Out of the 13 adopted sons, only Sun Shu was truly trusted by Elder He. Then, Sun Shu turned on the controller at the side, and the 3 iron gates rose one after another with a rumble. Elder He didn't even wait for the gates to be completely raised before he bent over and rushed in. The first and second missed. After passing through the 3rd iron gate, Elder He was stunned to see an underground vault. His eyes almost popped out. The other tycoons who had rushed in after him gasped in shock when they saw the empty underground vault. This Bayan. The pile of cash in the underground vault was gone, and the gold mountain formed by gold bars had also disappeared. Even the various leather bags, land deeds, and information on the bookshelves had all been plundered. The only things left in the huge underground vault were the old era relics on the shelves against the wall. The more he looked, the angrier Old Crane became. The wealth he had accumulated over the past few decades was gone in an instant. Looking closely, there were dug-out stone bricks on the ground not far away, and a lot of soil. With one hand on his heart, Old Crane pointed at the newly dug hole with the other, signaling for them to go forward and check. Sun Shu strode forward, squatted in front of the big hole, and looked inside. Then, he waved to his other sworn brothers to help. Finally, he jumped in with a searchlight. A moment later, the person in the hole crawled out with a face full of dust and said helplessly, "The hole has been sealed." Old Crane's face paled at his words. Seeing the wealth that he had accumulated over the decades disappear in an instant, he was furious. He staggered 2 steps and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, he clutched his heart and slowly collapsed. Foster father. Boss. In Link's gang. Everyone was like corpses, sitting or lying in the rest area. Just now, in order to deal with the things brought back by treasure-seeking mouse, everyone had spent a lot of effort. Many of them were still in a daze, wondering why the wealth of White Crane Hall would suddenly appear in Link's gang. The cash, the gold, and countless deeds and information. Link held a glass of cold whiskey in his hand to cool down his brain. These things were simply too crazy. Link could still understand the gold notes, but the documents and title deeds in the craft paper bags were the lifeblood of White Crane Hall. If the White Crane Hall found out that these things were missing, they would definitely go all out. He took a sip of the wine. The cold air and the heat of the wine rushed into his throat, clearing his mind. Fortunately, everything had been dealt with. If the White Crane Hall came looking for them, they would just say that they knew nothing about it. Now, as long as he gave his subordinates and brothers instructions, there should not be any problems. Just as Link was deep in thought, his phone buzzed. Link picked up his phone, opened the message, and jumped up from his seat. Chapter 176 White Crane Hall Falls Apart. It was a message from the slum's intelligence chief. There was only a short line. He Tongjian, the leader of White Crane Hall, fell into a coma due to a sudden illness and was sent to the hospital in an emergency. Link was shocked after reading the message. He Tongjian cultivated the immortal crane health maintenance technique and was also a level 20 elite. The possibility of him suddenly falling ill at this juncture was almost zero. He Tongjian must have found that the underground vault had been robbed and all the wealth he had accumulated in his life had disappeared. He must have passed out in a moment of panic, so he had been sent to the hospital for emergency treatment. If I've received the information, then the news must have spread throughout the entire slum area. The last wave of killing at the entrance of White Crane Hall was a bit brutal, and these 2 days, White Crane Hall didn't even dare to let out a fart. They must be recruiting soldiers. He didn't expect that he would be so angry that he almost died tonight. Hiss, now that the news of Old Crane's rescue has been announced, White Crane Hall is without a leader, and there are powerful enemies waiting for them. Link didn't finish his sentence. However, judging from the current situation of White Crane Hall, it seemed that the gangs in the slums would make their move in the next 2 days. Link passed the phone to number 3, who looked at it and turned pale. He stammered, "Boss, it's because of us, right?" Link nodded and clapped his hands, signaling for everyone to look over. Report from the slums: the master of White Crane Hall, Old Crane, fell into a coma tonight and is being sent to the hospital. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. They looked at their boss in confusion and shock, trying to find an answer from his face. "It's exactly as you think. So from now on, forget about what happened just now. The Link clan doesn't have any cash, gold, or documents. After we came back from the Colosseum, we celebrated and went to rest. Got it?" Everyone nodded. Link was finally at ease. After tonight's team building in the Colosseum, everyone except for Wind Chaser and Bandit Cool Person had become extremely loyal. They would never betray their master, so Link was sure that they had remembered it and was relieved. "All right, if there's nothing else, everyone can rest." Link waved his hand to dismiss everyone before returning to his bedroom to rest. It was only a vague message. The details would have to wait until the official report tomorrow morning. Old Crane fell to the ground like a hunter who had lost his weapon. In the dark and gloomy forest, countless prey bared their fangs, ready to attack the hunter at any moment. If the hunter could not find a weapon to defend himself in time, he might not be able to walk out of the forest alive. Now, Old Crane was the weapon, and White Crane Hall was the unarmed hunter. That night, the slums of the Shadow City were turbulent. Originally, Link had been the protagonist of the interview on the television station's Animal Arena program. However, the Old Crane's sudden unconsciousness had stolen the headlines that should have been Link's. Link was lying on his bed. He suddenly got up and smacked his forehead. "I almost forgot about this." Link took out a letter tube from his suit jacket. After coming here, he had been busy dealing with the money and documents of White Crane Hall, and almost forgot about the letter tube given by the painter. Link opened the tube and pulled out 3 pieces of paper. Link put the tube aside and unrolled the letter. He began to read its contents. Just reading the first few lines, Link couldn't help but gasp, and the blood drained from his face. Then, he looked at the second and third cases. A moment later, Link fell back onto the bed, his eyes listless. "John, what are you trying to do?" At the same time, in the most magnificent and tall Moros building in the uptown of Shadow, Kohler had obtained the information collected by Tai, as well as the latest explosive content. Kohler glanced at the contents of the paper when he handed it over, and he couldn't help but be surprised. "Since you've already seen it, just say it." Moros was sitting in the boss chair with his back to the desk. He was enjoying the charming night view of the neon lights in the uptown. Kohler knew that his boss was unfathomable. Even if he had his back to him, he could tell that he had seen the contents of the information. He simply read it out loud. Late at night, the White Crane Hall was attacked, and a large number of hatchet men were injured. The underground vault was stolen, and cash, gold, and land deeds were all missing. Hitanjian was so angry that he fell into a coma after he found out about it. Tens of thousands of rats dug a hole in the ground to enter the underground vault. These rats are all under the command of Link's pet rat. All the stolen goods are now stored in the Link gang. Moros laughed and said, "I'm really at ease when Tai does things. He leaves out no details." Moros finally found out about Link's plan tonight. "I have to say, the young people these days are very bold." Moros snuffed out the cigar as he spoke. Insubordination, stealing confidential information, he did all of it. This wave had emptied out all the assets of White Crane Hall. But to be honest, I didn't expect Hitanjian to have such a bad heart at such an old age. I didn't expect him to spit blood into the ICU ward. Kohler finished reading the information in his hands and asked, "Boss, Link has violated the rules of the gangs in the slums. Should we punish him?" Moros asked, "Punish? With what? Our data can be said to be obtained from a god's perspective and cannot be used as evidence. At the beginning of the establishment of the gangs in the slums, Alonso, Derek, and I had set a rule that the military could not interfere in the fights between gangs without a valid reason. The underground black market was completely neutral, and I had also promised that I would not personally interfere and change the situation in the slums. Since it's a rule, we must follow it. The slums are a place for breeding insects and training agents. If we break the rules, do you think anyone will be able to climb out of the garbage land in the future? Didn't you also fight your way out of the slums in the past? How could you forget the rules in just a few years? If White Crane Hall or other gangs find evidence and prove Link's innocence, no one will let him go. However, as long as no one has evidence, then he is innocent, understand? Kohler couldn't help but lower his head, feeling ashamed of his thoughts just now. I understand, boss. Shall we wait and see? I thought it was the end. I didn't expect the show to just start. As an audience, of course I have to enjoy the following plot. Next, I'm afraid that White Crane Hall will fall apart. By then, it won't be a matter between White Crane Hall and the Link Gang anymore. Interesting, very interesting, Ying Luo. Chapter 177 The Last Stubbornness of White Crane Hall. The next morning, Link felt suffocated and jolted awake from his sleep. When he opened his eyes, he found that Treasure Hunting Mouse had fallen asleep on his chest. Link hurriedly glanced at the chair beside him. He didn't see what the Treasure Hunting Mouse had stolen. He let out a sigh of relief and fell heavily on the pillow. The vibration of its body was transmitted to the small Treasure Hunting Mouse, which trembled like jelly, looking very cute. Link looked at the yellow-skinned Treasure Hunting Mouse. It seemed that Xiao Bao was too tired from commanding the mice last night. He didn't go out to kill at night. Link rose slowly and put the Treasure Hunting Mouse on the bed. He wanted it to rest. He then washed up and changed his clothes before walking out of the bedroom. Just as he walked out of his bedroom to his office, Lin Ke heard the macaw bragging in the resting area through the glass. Haha, let me tell you, the success last night was all thanks to my good command. If I didn't pass on Link's message, would the Treasure Hunting Mouse understand such a complicated plan? If I didn't convey Link's plan in detail, the Treasure Hunting Mouse would be like a headless fly, running around randomly. The entire plan was built with me as the core, so there's no need to say who has contributed the most. To tell you the truth, this time, you're all supporting roles. I'm the only main character, you know that. The macaw laid on the rattan chair and pointed out the world, showing off the gloating expression of a villain. Link shook his head helplessly. This guy was really taking advantage of his position. However, the entire plan could be linked seamlessly, and the macaw was indeed in charge of the central position. Without it, Link would have to think of a way to escape from the Moon Shadow Council and rush to White Crane Hall with the Treasure Hunting Mouse. He would have to personally command the plan and even risk being discovered to enter the underground vault of White Crane Hall. The risk of the mission would increase exponentially. Even though Old Jin was usually unreliable, he was still very trustworthy at critical moments. During this mission, the order was delivered well, and the Treasure Hunting Mouse's execution was also very good. It really brought back all the paper things and even cleared out the gold in the White Crane Hall. If they were to be given a rating for their actions, they would definitely be S-ranked. This also meant that Link had no more worries. With one more reliable pet, if there was a need for a two-way operation in the future, he could send the macaw to supervise the battle and convey the plan. Link sat on the tiger hide chair and pressed a button on the table. After a while, Ah Fu came in with breakfast, coffee, and newspapers. Did anything happen this morning? Link asked casually. Everything's as usual, Fu shook his head and said. Link nodded, indicating that Ah Fu could go back to work. Taking a sip of his coffee, Link noticed that the breathing light on his phone was blinking for a text message. He picked up his phone and saw that there were 3 unread messages while he was sleeping. One was from the intelligence agents in the slums, the second was from Benjamin, and the last one was from Anna. Link had thought of the first two messages, but he really didn't expect Anna to send him a message now. Out of curiosity, Link opened Anna's message. "You were on TV last night, and your answer was humorous. Let me tell you a secret. After many of my close friends found out that you have business dealings with my family, they came to me and my sister to ask about you." It was sent at 6:30 in the morning. Link couldn't help but scratch his head. How should he reply to this message? As he was hesitating, Link saw the treasure-hunting mouse yawning and jumping in from the balcony window. It ran to the table and went back to sleep with a big snot bubble on its nose. Lin Kei's eyes lit up as he recalled the content of the reply. "If your best friends need to buy beasts or pets, you can introduce them to me." Lin Kei looked at his own reply and couldn't help but clap his hands in admiration. Not only did they reply to this, but they also promoted the main business of the Link gang, beautiful juice. Just as Link was about to open Benjamin's message, his phone rang again. It was Anna's reply. "So fast. Don't tell me he's been holding his phone the whole time." Lin Kei opened the message. There was only one short line on it: "They don't like pets." "That's such a pity." Link then opened Benjamin's message. Benjamin was a curious child and a gossiper. The first thing he said was that he was an old schemer. "I heard that the head of White Crane Hall, Old Crane, is in the hospital. Did you do this?" Stimulation JPY. "No, it's not. It's purely a rumor. I've already transferred it to the lawyer." Finally, Link saw the information on the slum intelligence agents. The news has been confirmed. He Tongjian, the master of the White Crane Hall of the water transport gang, has been admitted to the ICU of the first hospital of Shandu. The medical report has diagnosed him with acute cerebral infarction. He has been in a coma for more than 7 hours and has no signs of waking up. "It's really a one-way trip, Ying Luo." Link couldn't help but exclaim. He had thought that the news from last night was just a smokescreen put up by White Crane Hall. He didn't expect it to be true. If he Tongjian really doesn't wake up, a few tycoons who are still wet behind the ears won't be able to protect the territory of White Crane Hall, hee. Link rubbed his chin. Somehow, he felt that this was a good opportunity for him to set up a trap. However, the situation was too chaotic, like a ball of yarn that was tangled together, making it difficult for him to sort it out. It was better to wait and see what would happen and wait for the opportunity. Just as Link was deep in thought, he received another text. "Benjamin, I was just joking, don't be angry brother Lin. I'm sending you a text message to remind you that tomorrow is the preliminaries of the Rare Animal Beauty Contest held by Shudu Entertainment News. Remember to bring your pet to the contest. I'll be waiting for you at the venue." Link, "Okay, thank you." Link had been too busy these 2 days. If not for Benjamin's reminder, he would have forgotten about this. Just as Link put down his phone and was about to read the newspaper, he heard a commotion outside the office. Third brother rushed in and panted, "Boss, it's not good, the people from White Crane Hall are here." Link furrowed his brows and put down the newspaper. The people of White Crane Hall came at this time. As soon as Link walked out of the house, he saw the 3 tycoons of White Crane Hall with a large group of thugs. They rushed into the alley with weapons in their hands. "Oh, the guardians have brought people to visit. Is there something you need?" 11 had a bad temper and stood out directly. "Link, we suspect that you're involved in the theft of the White Crane Hall's underground vault last night." Link was dumbfounded, and then his expression changed. The underground vault of White Crane Hall was robbed? When did it happen? Chapter 178 A Big Search. Last night at around 12 o'clock, the underground vault of White Crane Hall was robbed, and we found evidence related to you at the scene. Link was surprised. He spread his hands. Last night around 12 o'clock, our Lin K gang had a team building event in the Colosseum. Everyone was there, and I even accepted an interview with the Sand City TV station's Coliseum program team. It was a live interview. After the interview, it was already 11:40. How could I have arrived at White Crane Hall in 10 minutes to steal from the underground vault? Besides, I even had a wild beast fight after that, and someone even applied for an arbitration from the Moon Shadow Council. Are you saying that I know how to clone myself and appear in the Coliseum and the White Crane Hall at the same time, or are you saying that you can't find the murderer now and are using your public power to avenge your personal grudge so that I can be the scapegoat? Link's words were reasonable and no one could find a breakthrough. Then look at what this is. As 11th Guardian spoke, he pinched a rat and said in a deep voice, "We found a hole in the warehouse of the abandoned dock, which led directly to the underground vault of White Crane Hall. We also found dead rats in it, so we have reason to suspect that it was your rats who ordered the rats to dig the tunnel and then sent people in to empty the underground vault." Using a dead rat as evidence, Link sneered, "Is this where the White Crane Hall's confidence comes from? Or is there no one who can control you now that old Crane isn't here? The stolen money must be in Link's gang. You can't clear up such a large amount of money, gold, and information in one night. According to the information I have, you guys came straight back from the Coliseum and haven't gone out at all, so the money must be inside." The smile on Link's face gradually froze, and his eyes were filled with undisguisable killing intent. 11th Guardian, do you know that I can order my subordinates to attack you just because of what you said? Suspecting a subordinate gang of offending their superior for no reason. You've really put a big hat on it, haven't you? 11 stared into Link's eyes, not backing down an inch. At this moment, Old 9 and Old 10 also walked up. We all know that Boss Lin has the ability to control animals, and he usually brings a rat with him. However, when we went to the animal arena last night, rat didn't show up at all. There must be something wrong with this. I wonder if Boss Lin can explain the reason behind this. Little Treasure wasn't feeling well yesterday, so he stayed in the gang. Besides, it's just an ordinary rat. I'm in the Coliseum tens of kilometers away, how could I control it to steal from the underground vault of White Crane Hall? That's hard to say. Boss Lin, please step aside and let us search the Link clan personally. Let the truth speak for itself. Just as Link was about to speak, the macaw in the resting area cursed, "I'm talking about your mother. Why don't you go to your grave and talk about it slowly?" 9th Guardian's chest was immediately filled with anger when he saw the macaw resting on the rattan chair. Just as she was about to say something to Link, he said, "Don't look at me, this is the Mun Kingdom commander's son, Ying Ying, the one Benjamin gave me for the rare animal beauty contest." In other words, he could not give any orders to this pet. 9th Guardian held back the words that were on the tip of his tongue. This was Commander Mun's pet, and if he were to scold it, the military would be dragged into this. Humph. In the end, 9th Guardian simply snorted and decided not to argue with a feathered animal. Humph, 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 are you a pig? Seeing the other party's submissiveness, the macaw naturally attacked with a heavy punch. "Boss Lin, if you don't move, we're going to force our way in. Don't you dare!" Mr. Kong suddenly stood up and pointed his gun at the people of White Crane Hall. "I'll see who dares to take another step forward." The macaw also jumped down from the wicker chair, its two wings on its waist, like a shrew cursing in the street. "Search? Are you going to search your coffin here?" Seeing this, the thugs of the Link gang all pulled out their guns. The hatchet men of White Crane Hall were not to be outdone, and they also raised their guns. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Link glanced at the three gangsters and raised his hand to press down on third brother's gun. "You can search, but what if you can't find anything? Framing a gang under your name is breaking the rules and chilling the hearts of the people. If there really isn't, I'll take responsibility." 11 stood up, patting his shoulder. "Good. With so many brothers here as witnesses, if we can't find him, we'll deal with him according to the rules." Link waved his hand, and all the goons put away their guns and made way. Link won't be of much help. I'll give you 15 minutes. If you can't find it, we'll settle the score. Link said coldly. The three tycoons stood in the courtyard, waving their hands to signal their subordinates to search the area. The hatchet men of White Crane Hall were like hyenas that had smelled rotten meat. They rushed into the Link gang like crazy and began to search wantonly. Number 3 quickly followed them. Some places, such as the office and the boss's bedroom, had to be watched on the side. They couldn't be allowed to touch them. Men, the three tycoons of White Crane Hall are standing here. Can't you guys tell me what to do? Hurry up and pour me some water. Afu, who was standing at the side, was about to pour some tea when 11 sternly rejected him. No need. Very quickly, a few thugs came out of the house one after another. They walked to the side of the three tycoons and shook their heads helplessly. No, I didn't. The macaw stood at the side and cursed, your F***ing memorial tablets are in the house? You can't come out. More and more thugs came out, but none of them brought good news. The three tycoons' faces were extremely gloomy, so cold that it seemed to be able to freeze the surrounding air. When the last person walked up to him and shook his head, Link sneered. He walked out and stared at 11. 11th Guardian, what did you say before? If we can't find anything, you'll be responsible, right? 11's face was cold. He was about to step out but was stopped by 9th Guardian. Wait. As far as I know, the Link gang should have an underground secret chamber specially used for the wild animal trade. This place hasn't been searched yet, so it's not over yet. Don't go too far. Link's expression changed. Even the treasure-hunting mouse came out of his pocket and jumped onto Link's shoulder. It placed its two paws on its waist and squeaked non-stop. The hellhound's throat was making a clattering sound. As soon as Link gave the order, it would rush up immediately. Seeing Link's expression, the three of them were even more certain that the item was definitely hidden in the secret underground room. Boss Lin, it looks like we were right. The item is definitely in the underground secret room. I've heard from Jack before that there's a secret passage in the office that leads to the secret underground room. Boss Lin, if you don't move, then you're admitting it. I've already recorded our conversation. If this thing gets out, you'll be a rat in the slums of Shandu, and everyone will want to beat you up. A person who dares to offend his superior will definitely not be put in an important position. Link clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. He gritted his teeth and said, what if there's nothing in the underground chamber? Then double the punishment. I'll take responsibility. 11 slapped his shoulder and said with certainty. Link's eyes were like those of a wolf, staring at 11 as if he wanted to skin him alive. Third brother, bring them to the secret underground room. Number 3 was nervous. He couldn't believe that Link had agreed to search the basement. Boss, please reconsider. Even the macaw at the back sighed in disappointment. AI. This time, he was finished. 179 Chapter 179 Breaking the Hand as usual. Seeing Link's expression, the three tycoons were even more certain that they had guessed correctly this time. As long as the money and all the contracts were recovered, the White Crane Hall would still have the confidence to be one of the 6 major branches of the water transportation gang. The third brother, Mr. Kong, walked in the front, followed by the 3 gangsters. The thugs from White Crane Hall and the Link gang were all confronting each other in the resting area. When number 3 walked to the bookshelf in the office, he was already very nervous. He couldn't help but look back at Link, as if asking if he should really open the secret room. Hurry up and open the door, what are you waiting for? Did we hit the mark? The item is hidden in the underground secret room. At this moment, 11's eyes flickered with light. This time, he really found a way out of the mountain and water. Just as Sun Shu had said, Link was the mastermind behind the theft of the White Crane Hall's underground vault. Let's start. After entering the room, Link's tone was calm, but there was a hint of helplessness and despair in it. His tone was like fuel for the three tycoons of White Crane Hall. They were even more certain that Link was the culprit. Number 3 pulled out the Encyclopedia of Animals with a red cover, and soon a secret door appeared on the shelf. The moment the door opened, 11 rushed down with the other 2 following closely behind. However, when they went down the stairs and saw the empty basement, their minds suddenly buzzed and then went blank. There was no cash, gold, or information. There was only an alpaca chewing on a grass root, staring at the 3 of them as if they were idiots. How is this possible? How is this possible? It must be here, how can it not be here? The 3 of them were dumbfounded. Third brother, who was following behind Link, also widened his eyes when he saw the empty basement. Last night, Boss clearly told them to pack up and move the things to the basement. Why did it disappear today? He looked at Boss, who was calm and had a faint smile on his face. He was not afraid that the thing would be found. At this moment, suddenly, Ninth Guardian's eyes lit up. He saw something covering the wall and rushed forward to lift it up. An abandoned punching bag appeared in front of him. There were a few holes on the punching bag, and sand was flowing out of them. This used to be in Jack's bedroom. Since it started leaking, I threw it directly into the basement. Is there a problem? He asked. Old Zhu still didn't give up. He took out a dagger and cut open the punching bag, but he only took out sand and nothing else. Impossible, this is impossible. You definitely stole it. Where did you hide it? Link's expression turned cold. His voice was emotionless and even cold. Although the Link gang is a subordinate of White Crane Hall, it's not your dog. You can't order them around. Link's gang has already asked you to look for it, but you insisted that I was the one who stole it. Have you found it yet? Now that I've shown you the basement, you still can't find anything, and you're still saying that I stole it? Didn't Hitanjian teach you what the rules were? You should know that with your false accusations, even if I kill the 3 of you on the spot, no one will say anything. The 3 tycoons felt a chill run down their backs, and their clothes were already soaked in cold sweat. She didn't know if it was because the basement was cold or because Link's killing intent was too strong. Link was right. Even if he killed all 3 of them now, White Crane Hall would not be able to defend themselves. I'm sorry, we've been rude. Please forgive us, Boss Linear. Ninth brother was flexible and quickly cupped his fists in apology. Now that the backbone of White Crane Hall, Elder He, had fallen and was unconscious in the ICU ward, White Crane Hall would be completely destroyed if they suffered any more losses. Everyone walked out of the basement. They were not as arrogant as they were when they entered. Now, the 3 of them had quieted down and completely lost their arrogance and domineering attitude. The macaw looked at the 3 of them, then at the smiling Link and the relieved third brother. It could guess the result. Where's the stolen goods? Where's the stolen goods that you were talking about just now? Why didn't you take it out? I really don't know where your confidence comes from. Your complex facial features can't hide your plain IQ. With this level of skill, he's still learning to investigate and search. He didn't even find a fart after all this trouble. At this moment, the 3 tycoons' minds were blank after being rebuked by this macaw with status and background. It was as if a ball of fire had accumulated in their chest and was about to explode at any moment. Humph, let's go. Ninth Guardian waved his hand and left with his men from White Crane Hall. Just as he reached the courtyard, the voice behind him sounded again. He's leaving just like that. Who was the one who said he wanted to take responsibility? Link asked in a lazy tone. Everyone from White Crane Hall stopped in their tracks. 11 clenched his fists, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. He was in a dilemma. Ninth brother frowned and turned to look at Link. Link, don't go too far. Link laughed coldly. He really couldn't understand the intelligence of these 3. It seemed that Old Crane only looked at his strength, not his brains, when it came to taking in an adopted son. Since it's a bet, let's just carry it out. I think Old Crane is still lying in the ICU. If the news that White Crane Hall is trying to frame you spread, I think there will be other gangs who will take the opportunity to trample on you. It's hard to say how much losses you will suffer. The Link Gang is a subordinate of White Crane Hall, so I won't do it myself for Old Crane's sake. Let the 11th Guardian do it himself. Fear flickered in 11's eyes at this moment. He never thought that the bet they had made with such confidence would end in their defeat. Before they had come, their second brother had analyzed the situation and told them that the item was definitely in Link's hands. Therefore, he had rushed over with his men early in the morning, but he didn't expect this to be the result. As the white paper fan of White Crane Hall, second brother was the one behind every operation, and he was also foster father's most trusted tycoon. He had even given him the key to the underground vault, which showed how much he valued second brother. He was confident in his second brother's words, and it was the same this time. He volunteered to help Link take revenge with his shoulder injury. However, he didn't expect the situation to be like this. What? You have the guts to make a bet but not the guts to carry it out? Or have you forgotten the price you have to pay for framing your fellow sect members? Link's lips curled up and he crossed his arms. Third brother, can you help 11th Guardian recall what happened? The third brother snorted coldly and took a step forward, shouting, framing a fellow member of the sect is unkind and unjust. According to the rules, one of your hands will be broken. The 11th Guardian agreed to take double the punishment and break both his hands. 11 clenched his fists. These words were extremely harsh and entered his ears clearly. If he broke his hands, he would be embarrassed. He would be completely crippled. 9th brother, 10th brother, please. 11 looked at his two brothers with pleading eyes. Old 9 and Old 10 let out a long sigh and patted 11's shoulders. The other party had not finished his sentence. If you don't follow the rules, all the gangs in the slums will kill you. 2 lines of tears flowed out from the corner of Old 9's eyes. He gritted his teeth with difficulty and said, 11, execute it. White Crane Hall will take care of you in the future. Boom. 11's mind went blank, his face ashen. This time, there was really no turning back. A wave of sadness and desolation surged in his heart. It's just a broken hand, not your life. You're so indecisive and not like a man. Since you're just a piece of trash, then don't blame me for overstepping my boundaries. Little White. The macaw shouted and a black shadow suddenly appeared in the sky. The sky was filled with blade feathers. With a series of screams, 10 feathers shot out and accurately pierced 11's wrist. 180 You're such a bad person. Arg. 11th Guardian looked at his hands full of feathers and his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. 10 fingers were connected to the heart, and the excruciating pain was like a bug biting, making people almost go crazy. What frightened 11 even more was that the intense pain only existed in his arms. He couldn't feel his hands anymore. My hand, my hand. Everyone in the White Crane Hall was shocked by the white-headed sea eagle's power. It looked like an ordinary sea eagle, but the feathers that shot out from its body were even sharper than daggers. The feathers sank into his palm and wrist, deep into his bone marrow. Fresh blood flowed out of the wound and dripped to the ground. Whitey flew towards Link and landed on his arm. Link stroked Whitey's feathers as he said, friendly reminder, this sea eagle of mine is a little special. Its feathers are poisonous. Now that his hands are completely crippled, the poison of his feathers will soon spread through his blood to the rest of his body. By then, even a god would find it difficult to save him. Link wasn't lying. The white-bladed sea eagle had the passive skill poison, so its feathers were indeed poisonous. 9th and 10th gritted their teeth as they glared at Link. They wanted to eat him alive. 11 suddenly felt the intense pain in his arms slowly disappear, and the feeling in his arms disappeared with it. 10th Guardian's face gradually changed from a ferocious expression to a panicked one. The feeling in his arms gradually faded away. Now, he had lost all feeling in his entire forearm. Even the excruciating pain in his heart had disappeared without a trace. 9th brother, 10th brother, he's telling the truth. I can't feel my forearm anymore. Quickly save me, I don't want to die yet. 11 was so anxious that he was about to burst into tears. It was better to live than to die. The bet was originally to lose both hands, but now both arms were almost gone. Old 9 looked at the tear stains at the corner of 11's eyes and his constant pleading. In the end, he gritted his teeth and took a machete from the hands of the person beside him. 11, don't blame Big Brother. Before he could finish his words, a cold light flashed. He raised his hand and the knife fell, and his 2 forearms fell to the ground. 11, on the other hand, had been severely injured for the second time and had fainted. Oh, I forgot to tell you, the poison effect of my sea eagle is numbing and also temporary. The effect of the passive skill poison was that the body had a numbing and poisonous factor, which would cause different degrees of numbing effect according to the resistance of the injured person. As long as the effect passed, there would be no problem. Originally, this numbing effect could have relieved his pain a little, but unfortunately, before I could finish speaking, the impulsive 9th guardian directly cut off his arm with a knife. Link sighed and shook his head. The people of White Crane Hall standing at the door were so angry that their faces turned red. They wanted to attack but were stopped by 9th guardian. Many thanks for Boss Lin's advice, the White Crane Hall will definitely get back at you. 9th brother's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He also realized that Link had been toying with them from the beginning. However, White Crane Hall was no longer a threat to the Link gang. Unless Hitanjian, who was in the ICU, woke up, it would be difficult for White Crane Hall to do anything to the Link gang. Old 9 and Old 10 carried 11, while the hatchet man of White Crane Hall picked up his severed arms from the ground and left the scene in anger. Take care, 9th guardian. I'll visit Old Crane in the hospital when I'm free. Link said in a polite tone, as if he really cared about the old man's health. After the people from White Crane Hall left, the macaw was the first to rush up. It stretched out its wings and patted Link's butt. Not bad. The last few sentences are quite similar to mine. I even tricked the other party into putting on a show of brothers killing each other. If the 11 gangsters woke up and found out that they could have kept their arms, but their adopted brother cut them off in a hurry, what would they feel? I think, in order to preserve what little morale is left, this matter should not be revealed. Link's eyes suddenly brightened. However, I can tell them the truth out of kindness when I go to the hospital to visit Hitanjian after the preliminaries of the selection of rare animals tomorrow. The macaw cackled and patted Link's butt. You're such a bad person, but I like it. The reason why it patted its butt was because the macaw's height could only pat its butt. It couldn't even pat its shoulder. After the White Crane Hall members left, Link waved his hand to dismiss everyone. Mr. Kong followed behind Link, but his expression was not as happy as the others in White Crane Hall. There was always a trace of gloom between his brows. Boss, I have something I don't know if I should ask. Link returned to his seat and couldn't help but ask, you want to ask about the White Crane Hall, right? Mr. Kong was stunned for a moment. He didn't want to ask about White Crane Hall, but since his boss had already said it, he couldn't refuse. He nodded and waited for his boss to finish before asking. Link said as he released the treasure-hunting mouse. The treasure-seeking mouse immediately began to run around the room, searching up and down. I really wonder which kind soul has come to steal from White Crane Hall's underground vault at such a critical time. If I knew who it was, I would be deeply grateful. This time, Mr. Kong was even more confused. What nonsense was boss talking about? Weren't we the ones who robbed the underground vault of White Crane Hall? After a while, the treasure-hunting mouse ran out of the corner with a pile of equipment. It ran all the way and scattered the equipment on the table. This is... Mr. Kong was dumbfounded as he looked at the several bugs that had been removed from the table. He also understood the reason why his boss was talking nonsense just now. It was to give the illusion to the hidden sentries of White Crane Hall who were listening in on the other end. These were secretly installed by the people of White Crane Hall in the name of searching. I noticed it when they wanted to break in and search. Link patted the treasure-hunting mouse's head. Go and find all the tapping devices in the gang. With that, the treasure-hunting mouse scurried out of the office and began its treasure-hunting journey. You want to ask why the gold, cash, and documents were all in the basement yesterday? Why did they all disappear? Mr. Kong quickly nodded. Yes, that was what he wanted to ask. Yes. When boss said that you were going to open the basement to check, I panicked. I thought you were going to start a fight. Don't worry, said Link with a smile. I've hidden it in an extremely safe place. There won't be any problems. Third brother's shoulders sank slightly as he heaved a sigh of relief. I'm relieved that my doubts have been answered. By the way, boss, there's something I didn't tell you in the morning. Tomorrow is the preliminaries of the Rare Animal Beauty Contest, so we have to make some preparations. You take Fu with you for this matter. Let him be in charge and you'll assist from the side. You're the only one who can take charge of the gang now, and that's still too little. We have to train Fu as soon as possible, or we won't have much manpower when we grow big. The third brother nodded repeatedly, a trace of joy flashing between his brows.